America's Mayor Live. We're down to our last couple of weeks here in New Hampshire, and Ted and I have decided we're going to miss it. We'll show you. Before we go, we're going to show you the whole whole operation. It really isn't a whole operation. It's this, but we could have done like 2-3 shows in here. I mean, this place is fabulous. And it's, the other thing that's fabulous about it is, and particularly with all the breaking news that happened this summer, it was really fortunate that we live here. He lives right there, and I live right up there. Sometimes, particularly now that I've been recuperating, every once in a while he runs up there, he thinks I fell. I don't do it on purpose, Ted. Ted probably thinks I go boom, boom. But things happen. Particularly when you occasionally put on CNN and you throw stuff at the television. And I throw stuff at the television, but we're renting here. It's not my television. So I got to throw it above or below or around the television. It's a symbolic throwing. So it makes noise. And I do it all throughout CNN and MSNBC shows. The only way I can watch them. I never used to watch them. And then somebody, I won't tell you who, said, if you get this stuff and you throw it at them, it makes you... I don't know why I'm in a stupid mood tonight, but I am. Could it be because Comey is indicted? No. There he is. That looks like, an advertisement for a movie, doesn't it? The Wayward Cardinal. James Cardinal Comey. Now, I'm going to have to explain this to you. It's not done much anymore, but in the old days, cardinals were referred to that way. Like Cardinal Francis Spellman, who was the cardinal in New York for 4,322 years, was referred to as Francis Cardinal Spellman all the time. All the time. Nowadays, it's much more often done, Cardinal Dolan or whatever. But it used to always be broken up. First name, Cardinal, and then last name. And so why do I do that with Comey? I do it with Comey for several reasons. I'm doing penance for having hired him in the first place. I've gone to confession over and over again, and I've been told actually that they're tired of if I confess to sin one more time, it'll be a sin. So I've got a real problem. I said, oh man, if I hadn't hired him. Only way I get away with it with the good president is when he reminds me of my poor choices, I remind him of Michael Cohen. You would never believe you could do that with him. I bet you wouldn't. Even some of you guys that love him, I bet you wouldn't believe that you could do that with him. He really is a good guy. I saw a golfer today, probably not one of the famous ones. They're all great, but I said, it's remarkable what a regular guy is. Last time I saw him, all these kids were coming in and they wanted to throw the kids out. They weren't even the kids of the players. They were just kids. He said, leave the kids alone. Come on, I want to talk to them. Who would do that? What president would do that? Well, not the one who wouldn't recognize his granddaughter, right? Biden, or the first stepmother who wouldn't put out a thing for him. But in any event, we'll go into the Comey case again. I just did it on my other show a bit, but we're going to have we're going to have an analysis of it that I think you will find. I think you'll find it very, 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 very good, very useful. So we're at the end of the week in which a lot of very, very significant things again happened this week. Thank God, not tragic like last week. The UN appearance maybe being the most significant one in terms of world affairs, because the president went in front of the UN And I don't know if you realize how significant a speech that was. I would say it could be summarized this way. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very nice to be here. There isn't a single thing you and I agree about. I think you are completely wrong on world affairs. I think you're taking the world in the direction of not just destruction, but communist and an authoritarian, atheistic direction. I think you just want to destroy and hate the United States of America, and I think that you are disproportionately, not all, but extremely crooked in every sense of the word. You steal money. What I see from the reports from the New York City Police Department, you have a disproportionate number of criminals on your delegations, and you're a real menace to them. You support some of the worst atrocities in the history of the world. You have on your Human Rights Committee China that has assassinated more of its own people than any country maybe in history, that is now selling body parts with a group that they're attempting to eliminate through genocide, that they're trying to eliminate another group through genocide. They are going through a more slow but constant genocide of the Christian people. They spread COVID throughout the world in order to make sure that they weren't disproportionately affected. And you treat them like they're actually entitled to be agreed with. And their policies and their programs have a lot more support in this body than the policies and programs of the world's longest lasting legal republic democracy that has done more for the world than all of you combined. You hate our best friend Israel, and you try to destroy it because you're a bunch of Jew-hating, anti-Semitic slime. A lot of it generated by communism as a tactic, and by the Muslims as part of their religion. And you waste enormous amounts of money. No, I'm sorry. I promise to be direct here. You steal a lot of money. I mean, enormous amounts of money. Right from the very beginning when you built this place and spent 4 times more than you should because you were taking bribes. And you can't fool me. And the best thing would be if you'd move the hell out of here and New York City could build something really valuable where they made money and it wasn't one of the biggest places that stole money from them in the city of New York. I don't know if it's too late, but Mayor Giuliani had a wonderful idea of putting Yankee Stadium here. I'm a Yankee fan too. Now, if the president did that, we might have to name it after him. The Donald J. Trump Yankee Stadium. But I'd do that. I know a lot of fans might not, a lot of fans would, but imagine having a Yankee Stadium right on the East River. Wow. There's a long drive headed to the Empire. No, it's going to go to the Chrysler Building. Boy, that judge can really hit a long shot. So let's get to the story of the day, or the days, and that is, of course, the indictment of James Cardinal Comey, who you saw regaled in his finery before. First, I have to tell you, just in case you weren't on the last show, why I call him that. I call him that because he's a sanctimonious phony. I hired him years ago. I did not see all the things that would happen with him. Thought of him, I will be perfectly honest with you, as a considerably better than average assistant U.S. attorney. And had no reason to doubt that he wasn't like all of the other assistant U.S. attorneys, thoroughly honest, honorable, well-motivated. I left the U.S. Attorney's Office. He was not a close friend, but he wasn't an enemy. I mean, he wasn't a close friend, but he wasn't one of thousands. He eventually became, he became maybe deputy U.S. attorney and then U.S. attorney. And the first time I started to think there may be something wrong here is when he indicted Martha Stewart. I thought that was a showboat indictment and handled like a showboat indictment. And he would have said, of course, I got plenty of publicity for my indictments. But there's no way you could possibly compare his career as U.S. attorney and mine. He's not even a close competitor. I prosecuted the top of the mafia. I prosecuted the middle of the mafia and the bottom of the mafia. I helped put 700 mafia figures, all major ones, in jail in Italy, which is why I can't go to Sicily. I took back the Teamsters Union from organized crime, along with the Central States Pension Fund and Las Vegas. I took the entire fish market business from the mafia and made it legal. I made private sanitation legal in New York that was controlled by the mafia. I was the first one to really go after Wall Street and take down its biggest perverters in cases that no one ever believed I would win because we were so overmatched. Similarly, with the prosecution of public corruption, the most significant of which were in the Koch administration, I tried the case myself, a case that I was not supposed to win, and I did. I think I was the last U.S. attorney to actually go to court and try cases while I was U.S. attorney. I argued numerous appeals while I was U.S. attorney. So I was really an active lawyer. And there have been some really great U.S. attorneys, but I would compare my record to theirs, but they would not include James Cardinal Comey. He was okay. But then when he did Martha Stewart, I even think in the eyes of the public, he stood a switch. It was quite obviously a publicity indictment. It was a case that didn't have to be brought. A one-time, first-time insider trading case by a non-professional is often, if not always, settled civilly, unless you don't have any really big cases and you're dying to see your puss on television. And when you don't have a lot of big cases and you don't see your puss on television for real, then there is sort of a temptation to do things like that. I never had that temptation because I was on more than I had to be because I had real cases that turned the city. So my respect for him went from here to in the garbage. Then there was a whole incident with Ashcroft when he made a big scene about signing believe it or not, may have been a FISA warrant. I don't know. But he made a big thing out of it, like he was some kind of a martyr. And from that point on, I always had a distrust for him. Never expecting he would become the worst FBI director in history, making J. Edgar Hoover look kind of mild in comparison. He should have been indicted 4 or 5 years ago based on his lying in the FISA application and hiding the criminality and the lack of verification of the main document that was used in it, which all the liars, and they're all going to go to jail for it, said wasn't the main document. Except if you read the affidavit, it's the main document. I mean, what are they going to do? Rewrite the affidavit? If they could, they rewrite the affidavit. But that'll probably bring him, Brennan, and a whole bunch of others down. When they get around to taking that little 2-page indictment and make it into the big RICO indictment that it can become and encompass the various episodes of the crime they were committing. This crime was episodic. It was not singular. Crime begins maybe earlier, but certainly with the scheme by Hillary Clinton to pay money for the Steele affidavit, and at least $1.1 million laundered through the law firm Perkins Coie, described falsely as a legal fee, when in fact it was a fee for counter research, for false research. The research purported to be developed in Russia. Steele never went to Russia, hadn't been to Russia for 17 years. He produced it in Ukraine. The charge of Russian collusion was completely untrue. The charge of Ukrainian collusion in the Hillary Clinton Democratic Party campaign was 100% true. They all knew it, including right up to the President of the United States of America. Comey knew it. Brennan knew it. And assisted in it, particularly the CIA-type plots with Papadopoulos, came out of the CIA. It was an all-hands operation to try to destroy Donald Trump. When it failed to destroy Donald Trump, which they thought it would, probably the moment at which we know they failed is when Peter Strzok, who was their operative, said to his girlfriend, "There's no there." She was very concerned, and he said the magic words that now go into episode 2 of the long-term conspiracy that really is going to be the culmination of this case. He said, "We have an insurance policy." But the insurance policy is not another case. The insurance policy is to take the case they actually disproved, the case that they now know is completely phony and paid for, and just try to revive it and use it for the basis of an impeachment and taking known false testimony, not false testimony, an entire false plot that they had paid for, and they knew they had paid for it, and use it to remove a lawfully elected president, supported by lies from all over, including from the Prince of Obama and from Schiff. By the way, somebody on one of the stations, it probably was Newsmax, because I don't listen to Fox much anymore, and I love Newsmax, but I will ask you to please check with me when you start saying legal things. One of the things that was just assumed with one of your legal experts was you can't prosecute Schiff because of the speech and debate clause in the United States Constitution. I've been dying to prosecute Schiff for a long time. You'll even see it in my book. I was all ready to put him in my RICO case. Schiff made a very big mistake. Everything he said and more in Congress, he said on television. What you say on television, what you say in public is not covered by the speech and debate clause. So if you are saying things and doing things that are furthering the conspiracy of removing a lawfully elected president, the conspiracy to defraud, the conspiracy maybe to commit espionage, and you're not doing it just on the floor of the House or Senate, you're perfectly as prosecutable as me. If you're holding up a list and you say, I have witnesses here, right? I have witnesses here that can prove and have direct evidence of Trump's being involved in Russian collusion. And to this day, you haven't produced any of them. I think there's a fair conclusion that you were furthering the conspiracy to remove a lawfully elected president. Do you know he did that on television? He did not do that. I have the tape. I have the video. We were ready for an impeachment on that, and we would have knocked the shit out of them, and maybe got him put in jail. Well, that can still be done as part of a RICO case. As long as the RICO case comes into the statute of limitations, all the prior RICO activity comes in. So when they say the case is barred by the statute of limitations, please, I'm the expert on RICO, not them, come to me, okay? I get so frustrated. Lucky I don't have a tendency to get an ulcer. I mean, with a broken back and an ulcer, it would be really tough. No, it wouldn't. These guys motivate me. They get me better for my country.
So this is just the beginning? Do we expect to see more? First,
I expect the moon, my friend. I expect the moon. I remember, I have in my mind the cases that I started with a 1-count indictment against a single person, and then I flipped 10 people, and I had a 70-person indictment. I remember those days. I remember those days.
Wow.
And, you know, I had to do that with people who had guts, that were tough, mean, and even honorable in their own miserable way, called stockbrokers, mafia people, terrorists. They don't turn each other in. Politicians will sell their mother out. They're the easiest people to flip. I don't think there's a lawyer that would disagree with that. A very, very famous mafia lawyer who also represented some of the most famous politicians in New York, on the day that I broke his client down and got him to confess basically on the witness stand, right? Which is like Perry Mason, and it was in the newspapers, front page. It was when the New York Times, now if I did it now, the New York Times would make believe I didn't do it. They spelled my name wrong. They'd have some mean picture of me looking like this. But they didn't know then. They probably would like to get rid of it. He came over. He actually didn't come over to me. He came over to one of my assistants. But he was a good friend. And he said, you know, people ask me all the time, who do you prefer to represent, those mafia guys or the politicians? He said, yeah, I prefer the mafia guys. First of all, they either don't tell you anything or they tell you the truth from the beginning. The other guys tell you 14 versions. So you never know what you're defending. And secondly, they can take it. They don't cave in. And my co-counsel, who was a very big reason for why I broke him down, because we practiced so much, that he didn't cave in. Giuliani destroyed him. But in any event, he preferred representing the mafia guys because they were more like men. You know, they were more like, they had some kind of ridiculous honor, but honor, like they took an oath not to turn each other in, and they didn't. Whereas these guys, as I said, would turn their mother in. So if you don't think, you go through 20 of those guys and we don't pick up 2, 3 that flip like that. Remember Watergate? That flip like that. It's going to happen. And here's how I can tell that I'm right. If this were the ultimate on Comey, it would not be 2 pages and 2 counts. Even if it was 2 counts, it would be what we call, and you've heard this before, a speaking indictment. A speaking indictment is an indictment that tells the story of the crime. And a lot of defense lawyers and a lot of judges don't like that. They think it's prejudicial. But why do you think the prosecutor does it? He wants to get a conviction. Should he be allowed to do it? Well, it depends on which side. Yeah, of course he should. As long as what he puts in there, he's prepared to prove. But that's what you do when you're sort of at the culmination, and now you got the document you want to try the case on, unless it's a very simple case. This is not a simple case. So this is the beginning of what they hope to be a much, much bigger case. The outline of that case is there on the public record. And we've done it quickly a few times. We'll give you the benefit of doing it in detail, maybe next week, when we can put the little pieces together and show you what's possible. But we'll have to do it and it'll be kind of interesting. Like a game, but it's a game with people's lives. If so-and-so cooperates, this is what you can do. If he doesn't, this is what you can do. This is what you can do. And the reality is, the ones that'll do the big time are the ones that'll last one in the door. They're the ones that'll do the big time. Are there a couple of untouchables? Hillary, Obama. I hope not. To me, there are no untouchables. When other people say that, they don't always mean it. I really believe in the law. I really do. It has. You want to talk about break your heart, like that lying piece of shit James Cardinal Comey said, broke my heart for the Justice Department. They didn't even say it effectively. What they have done to the Justice Department, which I served much longer much more honorably. And by God, you wouldn't even be on a list that would be compared to me, you little shit. It breaks my heart to see what you've done to the Justice Department. It breaks my heart to see what you've done to my profession. You know, you can accept it or not, and I'm beyond caring if people do, but this is real for me. This is not a silly game. This is what government, democracy, law, what we've been fighting for in Western civilization for a couple thousand years is all about. And it's been set back by monsters. He's one of the monsters. Not the only one, maybe not even the worst one. No, not the worst one. But there's a long way to go here, and this is the beginning. And they should know, given the attitude of the president, which came through in the two, what do we call them now? We don't call them tweets. The two posts that he put out would indicate his patience has run out. So Comey went and got his pal Fitzpatrick as his lawyer. And that's, we will talk with Governor Blagojevich.
Rod Blagojevich is about.
Is he on yet?
He is not yet on. He'll be on in just a few minutes. Maybe we'll take a break.
Well, you see, let me explain so we don't waste time while he's on. The reason we're going to have Blago on is he was prosecuted by Fitzpatrick, who is now Comey's, he's his permanent lawyer. They're like buddies. They were buddies from the U.S. Attorney's Office. I hired both of them. Fitzpatrick is the younger one. Fitzpatrick was a really, really good prosecutor with a major problem. This I didn't even know because he wasn't prosecuting under me. I just hired him. But this I would hear about him. He's overzealous. The guy sees crimes everywhere, and he gets completely wrapped up in these totally complex theories because everybody's a criminal. Well, I think maybe one of the best examples of that in the last century was the Blagojevich case, for which he got 17 years for trying to make a deal over a senator. Well, this is like a baby who's never been in politics and doesn't understand that this happens all the time, or it's a guy who's desperate for attention. I don't know Fitzpatrick well enough to know which it is. In the case of Comey, it was all for attention. The guy doesn't have a principal bone in his body. But hey, it's not my job to help him, is it? But I don't know how smart it is to get yourself a zealot on your side to represent you when you got to start seeing the world differently if you're going to defend them. I was capable of being 30 different people. These guys are not. That's why they don't have a record as good as mine. But we'll take a short break, and we'll be right back. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month.
Wow.
Including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost. cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly, where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code Rudy. Act fast. These deals are...
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Have a full and unconditional pardon for former Governor Rod Blagojevich of the state of Illinois.
Good. It's my honor to do it. I've watched him. He was set up by a lot of bad people, some of the same people that I had to deal with. He wasn't quite as successful, but he had somebody that saw what was going on. I didn't know him other than I believe he was on The Apprentice for a little while. He was just a very nice person. He had a fantastic wife. She fought like hell to get him out. He was given a sentence of like 18 years. And it was a sort of a terrible injustice. They just were after him. They go after a lot of people. These are bad people, the other side. So I think he's just a very fine person. And this shouldn't have happened, and it shouldn't have happened to him. And let him have a normal life and let him go out and do what he has to do. So I'm signing this as a full pardon. Rod Blagojevich.
Mr. President, are you considering him for ambassador to Serbia?
Ted, you're actually pretty good.
No, but I would. I mean, he's now cleaner than anybody in this room.
That was a very, very beautiful day because although near the end of the president's consideration of that, we had a lot of conversations about it. We both came to the conclusion separately. I didn't know Rod Blagojevich. I watched the case, probably with the prejudice that, Illinois, Chicago politics, they're all corrupt. And then I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that on a deal for replacing a senator, which goes on all the time, they're going to put the guy in jail virtually for the rest of his life. Wow, this must be stinky. And then we started talking about it, and the president had very strong feelings about this, just based on the merits. Well, we have Rod with us because it's true that a lot of the same people that went after you were going after the president, Rod.
Well, hi, Mayor. How are you? We're trying to fix this camera. So
No,
sorry.
you get it right. Go ahead.
How's that? Whoa. Oh,
Yeah, after they did to you, they turned your whole world around. Bastards. We can
this
cut
is what
that out.
happens when you spend. There you go. When you spend 8 years in prison, you don't learn this technology, right? And the
8
world
years
changed.
in prison. Oh,
Yes.
gosh, I'm going to get off the point for a minute. But when you look back on that, I bet sometimes it feels like 50 years and sometimes it feels like 3 days, right?
That's very interesting. No, that's exactly the perspective. And it seems so long ago. And it seems as if it was another guy living that life. And when I was living that life, sheltering in place in prison for those 8
Yeah.
years, well, I would look back to my life when I was the governor of Illinois, the fifth largest state, and before that, a United States congressman. And then I would think about me then, and I'd say, that wasn't me. That was another guy too. So in so many respects, I've lived different kinds of lives. And I owe so much to President Trump, Mayor. God bless him. He's been so kind to me. It's a one-way street. He's always doing good things for me. But he was right to do it because I didn't break a law, cross the line, or take a penny. I stood up to these corrupt prosecutors who weaponize their power. You're no stranger to this. I'm so sorry they've done it to you, a bona fide American hero. And then they did to me, to President Trump, what they did to me. And I think they learned at the AAA level they can get away with it with a Democrat governor. They decided to go after a Republican president at the major league level. And it's the same people. Comey, Fitzgerald, Mueller, the same people using
Yeah.
the same playbook.
Fitzgerald, that's what I want to get to, Fitzgerald, because Fitzgerald is going to represent his co-conspirator, Comey. Now, it turns out, Rod, that I hired both of them originally. I hired Comey. Comey's a few years older than Fitzpatrick. So I hired Comey about 3 years before I left. And I actually worked with Comey and had a relatively good opinion of him. I never really got to deal with Fitzpatrick. He came in, I left, but he had a reputation of being a very good lawyer, but a zealot, of being overzealous. And there'd be people that would tell me you couldn't trust him with a case because he would see crimes when nobody else saw them. So I just put it in the back of my mind. And then your case came up and I saw his name in it and I saw what it was about. And I said, oh my God, this poor guy got the worst prosecutor you could get. You need a guy with a case like yours, you need a guy with some common sense and balance. Well, exactly what is this and how this whole concept in a case like yours of bribery is a very, very fluid, subjective concept. And I know, as a prosecutor, I never liked fluid, subjective concepts to put people in jail. That's to sue them for. But in any event, tell me about him.
A couple more things you and I have in common, Mr. Mayor. You hired Comey and Fitzgerald. I hired J.B. Pritzker, Governor Pritzker. I used to work for him.
Yeah, and the president hired Cohen, so we're okay.
Right. Okay. So we've had our share of mistakes. I'll plead guilty to that. But I'm not pleading guilty. I never would to those fake charges they brought against me. The bribery standard they used to convict me, Mayor, was an unlawful standard that the Supreme Court expressly said was not the law in the 1991 Supreme Court case McCormick versus the United States. The standard they applied to me was a standard you would apply to a politician like Senator Menendez, who's been convicted of taking things personally for himself. You know, take a bag of cash or gold bars, those sorts of things. There's less of a standard. But when it comes to fundraising, which has been described as a fundamental First Amendment right, a compelling state interest, the only compelling state interest that could limit that First Amendment right is what the Supreme Court has said as recently as the Citizens United case, quid pro quo corruption. And quid pro quo, they very specifically defined that as being expressed in the form of an agreement. There was none of that in my case. No one alleged a quid pro quo. In fact, the judge at the second trial made it abundantly clear, he's on the record, that if anybody uses the phrase quid pro quo, he's going to sanction them. So the second trial, they failed to convict me at a first trial, Mayor. The second trial was rigged. A judge that was handpicked by Fitzgerald and his people, and he was a partisan politician, kind of what I fear now with Comey's judge, who's apparently a Biden appointee. We can't even trust the courts anymore.
You can't.
You can't, right, Mayor?
You know, Governor, this was a civil case, and it had to do with seizing my property, and we were having a hearing, and I was the last witness. And the judge required me to come in person to be the last witness. So I testified, and everybody closed, and I'm getting up to walk out of the court because the judge is going to go decide the case. I said, no, sit. And he pulls the opinion out. I had testified for 5 hours, and he had written it before I testified. And I've been a lawyer for 50 years. I said to myself, man, I actually said it to him. I said, this is so obviously fixed. At least pretend. But it's a New York court, and New York courts are crooked. Where it comes to politics, they're crooked.
Well, the same in Chicago. And
they
I know operate
that.
from the same playbook, Mr. Mayor, as you know. And, it's a bad thing that happened to me. I would say a very bad thing. 8 years in prison. I didn't see my daughters grow up. And it was so darn corrupt. But, I feel like God has a plan for all of us. And I believe that, what they've done to you, what they did to President Trump, what happened to me, I think is a wake up call. And people like us have this, I think, destiny, a responsibility
Thank
to
you.
raise our voices and try to save our country, save our democracy. And it shouldn't be Republicans against Democrats or Democrats against Republicans. It ought to be a fair system. And these prosecutors must be out of politics, and they must be held accountable when they abuse their power for politics. That's why the charges against Comey, he should be given a fair trial. I know you agree with that.
Of
But the charges
course.
against Comey are very important to hold him accountable and bring him to justice if, in fact, he lied, which I have a strong belief that he lied, because we know he's a liar.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, and it's wonderful to see you have such a balanced view. But I can't let you off without telling me about Chicago. What I don't understand is 65 years of Democrat mayors, and every weekend it seems like it's a war. 5 people die, 10 people die, 20 people die, 15 people die, 40 people are shot. And nobody ever changes it. Are they like my people in New York? Are they brainwashed? I mean, we do that. We're going to elect a communist. We're on our way to electing a communist. I hardly can act better than thou. What happens? Why can't these people see that they need a change in party? Maybe 20 years from now, they need another change in party. The Republicans will get like that. But they got to change it now.
Well, Mayor, I don't know how wedded you are to living in Florida or New York, but please move to Chicago and run for mayor here to clean up our city like you did New York back in the 1990s, because that's exactly what we need here. This is a great city with great people in it. It's a beautiful
It is
city.
a great city.
It's
So is
so
New
much
York.
great history. Yes, exactly. You know, we beat you to the punch. We got a communist mayor in Brandon Johnson. He's Mamdani before Johnson. And he's clownishly incompetent. Nearly 600 people every single day. I should say every single day, nearly 600 reported crimes in Chicago. And that's probably undercounting, because the pressure on the police force from Mayor Johnson and Governor Pritzker and the Democrat leadership in Chicago is so much that they're probably afraid to actually report all the crimes. But nearly 600 every single day, and every single day someone is murdered in Chicago. Literally every single day. 80% of the murder victims are Black. 95% of the murder victims are Black and brown, Latinos and Black communities. And these Democrats who claim they're on the side of Black people and the disadvantaged and the disinherited, can you swear on your show, Mayor? They are full of you know what, because they're not on their side, because they won't provide the necessary protection to keep them safe. And Pritzker, who's an inherited billionaire, lives in a neighborhood called the Gold Coast, where the life expectancy is 91 years, and he's got a security detail. But you go 20 minutes south in the Englewood neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, and the life expectancy is 61 years. If they were killing people in our neighborhoods like they're doing in the Black neighborhoods and Latino neighborhoods, we would never, I should say, the white leaders, the white Democratic leaders would never tolerate it. And Pritzker, a year ago, sent the National Guard into Chicago for what? To protect Democratic donors and Democratic delegates at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. But he won't work with the President of the United States, President Trump, who's offering help to actually save lives in the city of Chicago, particularly Black and brown lives. Black lives matter to these Democrats, Mayor, only for votes.
You know, and he has an example already of how it worked in Washington. And the mayor of Washington, who was against it, has begrudgingly, I would say, because she's being honest, said it really worked well. She's not been purchased. She's not been pushed. She's almost a little reluctant to say it because she knows in her party. But she said, "Well, I really can't complain. He brought crime all the way down. And if he wants to do it again, at least she's an honest woman." But so he has an example of how it can work. I don't get it. It has to be they don't really give a damn about the people at all.
Well, they don't. That's exactly the point. They're the worst of what we think about politicians. It's all about their politics. Look, when I was the governor of Illinois, a Democrat, the first Democrat to endorse Obama, which I very much regret, but he was the Democrat from my state. I've known him since 1994.
Probably compared to Hillary, I ran in that election in 2008 in the Republican primary.
Yeah.
And I remember my wife calling me up when Obama announced in Chicago, and I just assumed I'm running against Hillary if I win. I got to beat McCain and run against Hillary. And she said to me, "Watch this guy. He can win." And I laughed at her. I said, oh, come on. He has no background. Hillary's a pro. She said, I don't know, Rudy. This guy's got something. He's got some kind of charm. I'm not saying he's any good. She said to me, whether she was right or wrong, I think he's a communist. But I think this guy's got a charm that's like special, like a Clinton or a Reagan. I said, oh, come on.
Well, he's got, of course, yes, it's self-evident. He has, formidable political talent. But, he was the beneficiary of the fact that he's fundamentally a white liberal whose father came from Kenya. And so you can merge the liberal vote in the Democratic primaries with the black vote, and you got the combination that will win primaries. And Hillary was always counting on the black community in those primaries, and she couldn't get it because Obama was in that place. And, look, to the credit of the American people, it's a beautiful thing to elect an African American to the United States.
Of course.
President.
When he got elected,
right,
after working for McCain, although I ran against McCain, he's one of my best friends. And we had a pact that we would support each other. So I worked for McCain as hard as I did for Trump. And when he got elected, I just put it in my mind, I'm going to until he proves me wrong, I'm going to support this guy. It would be a wonderful thing if he succeeded. Wouldn't be the end of the Republican Party. There's no such thing as the end of either party. We just go on forever. We find a way back. It might be good for this country. And then instead of uniting us, he made us more racially divided. In fact, he brought back a lot of the racial division we had overcome.
Well, that's precisely exactly right, Mayor. The hope was that his election was a new day in American political history, and now our country would continue to come together and unite, irrespective of race, creed, or color, judge people by the content of their character, all of it. The idea of Obama is what elected him and his political skill. But he was, the motto was change and hope. He was hope, but there was no change. He was an establishment guy, and he was a political guy, a complete and total political operative. So when you compare him to Trump trumps him on every single level. There was no depth to Obama's leadership. It was just play it safe, play to your base, divide the country, and get reelected,
100%.
and then get rich after you're the president, which is what he's done. He's like close to being a billionaire. Trump, in the meantime, is rich, successful, sacrifices, becomes the president of the United States, and fundamentally is changing things. So it's really an interesting dynamic, and the American people have caught on, and they're going to catch on. And I think a lot of people know, Mr. Mayor, how great you've been as an American citizen, as a patriot, and what you've done in your service to our country as mayor during 9/11.
Tell us, before we have to get off, tell us how you're doing now and what's going on with the family and what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm great. I've been given a new beginning by President Trump, and I believe it was divine intervention. I didn't know Donald Trump until I did a show, Celebrity Apprentice. How would I end up on a show like that? I got thrown out of office as governor. No one hired me. I needed money. So I did a show. He was so good to me. And then all those years later, never in my wildest dreams, as he's firing me on Celebrity Apprentice, Mr. Mayor, am I thinking he's ever going to be president of the United States or ever get into politics? And then miracles happen.
You were on his mind. I mean, I can tell you, he came into the presidency thinking of your case as an example of what's wrong with us.
I know that
no
too.
No one had to prove that to him. There was no real big persuasion. It was just a question of getting it done right and making sure it was done correctly. And sometimes there's a lot of persuasion, and he goes back and forth. He came in convinced that you were an example of what he was going to have to face.
Yes, and I'll give you great, compelling proof of that. I read about this in the book that I have coming out on the 24th of February. I just want to plug my book. But 1 month after he was president, Mr. Mayor, this is February of 2017. I'm called into I'm inmate number 408922424. I'm called into the case manager's office, and I'm asked, would you be willing to sign a waiver? The White House Pardon Office is asking for your records. Well, right away I know, holy cow, they're looking in to see whether or not I behaved as an inmate and whether I might be eligible for some kind of a presidential commutation, clemency, or maybe pardon. And so, of course, I happily signed it. I think, I was so excited that I probably misspelled my last name. And so right away I knew it had to be one person that was looking out for me, and it was him. And so all I can tell you is, on a personal level, profound gratitude. Whatever he needs me to do in anything, I would help him, because the best thing that's ever happened to my family and me, the best gift we've ever been given, was given to us by Donald Trump. And you know what that was, Mayor? He gave my little girls their father back.
Well, you're going to make me cry, Rod.
No.
When you get to be 81 years old, you cry a little more than usual. But I have to tell you, Rod, having seen it on the other side, I was his lawyer when he was going through all this.
Yeah.
This was, he did this from here and here.
I know.
There was never any doubt about it. I mean, there were, as you know, there were people that tried to tell him he was wrong. Why do it for a Democrat? People are going to come out against you. They're going to think it was a deal. And, you know, that stuff never works with him anyway. The more they did that, the more they convinced him to do it.
Amazing.
Well, it's great to see you. And we got to get together and just talk about everything. I really want to go ahead and find out what's in there. You know a lot, my friend.
I would love to do that, Mayor. And I got to say one thing. The first time I met you, October 2002 at Yankee Stadium, George Steinbrenner was hosting a fundraiser for me. You were there in the ballpark, and you were very nice to me. And it was a real pleasure and joy for me to meet you, because you were larger than life and still are.
And give my regards to your beautiful family.
Thank you, Mayor. God
bless you. Thank you. Well, that's when Donald Trump goes to heaven. Far be it from me to predict heaven. This case will be mentioned by whoever handles the trials in heaven. I always think it's St. Peter. I don't think God handles the trials. I think St. Peter, maybe God handles the appeals. Or maybe St. Peter, maybe St. Peter, he gives them out to some of the, maybe he can't handle all of them, so he gives them out to some of the other apostles. But I bet he doesn't get any kickbacks for it, like the Democratic district leaders in New York do. Well, we want you to go over and we want you to see Dr. Maria at 9. So I'm going to bring you up to date on the things that that really matter, the things that we have to make sure we cover. First of all, it looks like there's going to be a government shutdown. Oh, you won't even know it. All the important things you got to get, you're going to get. All the stuff where they're stealing money from you might get interrupted a little. It is a total jerkwater process by which the Democrats can extort money from Republicans. And right now they want to bribe, basically put us more in the hole. And the whole process is really, really stupid. Let me explain it to you. We've been through it enough, but I don't know if people really absorb it. So the government does a budget, and the government says we're going to spend $6.1 trillion. Just think of it as 6.1 million easier. $6.1 trillion. Now, that's been authorized in all different crazy ways with certain amount of discretion, and the president can move some of it around, but he can't move other parts around. And then all of a sudden, the government spends, instead of 6.1 billion, they spend 6.4 billion. Taxes aren't what they think they're going to be. And now it turns out they're only taking in 6.2 billion. That's called a deficit. That means you can't pay your bills. So you have to, and the president can't spend unauthorized money to pay that down. So now they basically have to take that $6.1 billion budget that they had authorized way back then, and they have to, at minimum, make it a $6.4 billion budget so that the president can pay basically for the things that have already been bought or the bribes that have already been paid out. The Democrats want him to do that. The Republicans, who don't like doing this because they'd like to go in and cut. But you're always in an emergency. The Republicans have come from a compromise where the strictest conservative Democrats would like to close, Republicans like to close the government down and say they're not going to get the money. I don't know if they actually thought out what would happen, but they're not going to get the money. We're not going to be held up like this again. The more moderate Republicans, many of whom are conservatives, also say, hey, somebody's got to be has to be an adult here. We got to keep the damn government going because it isn't just the bad guys getting money. It's the veterans, it's the soldiers, it's the law enforcement people, it's the good people. Our government is not made up of mostly bad people. Government is made up, admittedly, a lot of lazy people, people who don't go to work, 95% Democrats in some agencies. They don't even think they have to work anymore. But it still has some very core good people. So the Republicans have come up with, I would say, the usual, almost necessary compromise. So let's agree. I don't have the numbers perfect, but let's say we have a $6.1 billion budget, and right now we're at 6.3. So the Republicans want to take it from 6.1 to 6.3, maybe a little margin in it so we can get to the end of the year and then deal with it at the beginning of next year. Because we'll be back there at the beginning of next year, and whatever cutting we have to do, we can do, but we got a whole year to plan it and strategies we can put in place. And we have shown that we can do some cutting. Not what we should be doing. We need a bigger majority for that. But we can cut into this. We don't have to let it get out of control. The Democrats are saying, no, we want you to put $500 billion more in. They want to take it to about 6.7 billion. That's bribe money. Otherwise, we're going to close the government down. Now, these are guys, and I don't have the time. We'll do it on Monday or Tuesday as it's getting closer. These are the guys who said they would never close the government down under any circumstances. This is the same guys who wanted a wall until Trump wanted a wall. Right? These are the biggest liars, phonies. I don't know if they're crooks, but they're just as bad as crooks. There's no reason for the government to have to spend $500 billion of anything right now. We're bribing enough people. Geez. We're putting out enough wasted money. I will guarantee you could cut this budget by a third. And if you did it smartly, you wouldn't hurt anybody but the crooks. But in any event, the president said enough's enough. I'll put in the money that I have to for the overspending you did, which you never should have done. I'll cover that. But I'm not going to give you like a license to continue to steal. I don't think any president's ever really done it that way until you do an actual budget. So I thought until a few days ago that we were definitely going to have a closure. When I saw the two subway people, Schumer and Jeffries, like the vermin in the subway, begging for a meeting when they wouldn't meet with Trump for a year. I said, something's going on. They're getting worried they're going to get blamed for it. Too many videos of them saying they would never allow a shutdown. No really good excuse to get off on. And slightly, ever so slightly, the media is changing. It's changing in two respects. There's a better balance now because there are a lot more of us. By us, I mean the late departed Charlotte and his great friend Ben Johnson, and of course the wonderful Bannon, and we can go on. There are a lot of them now, and when you put them all together, they have a bigger audience. I mean, Gutfeld beats the jerks on late night television by like 2-1. What that means is somewhere near half of America or more is getting our message from people who really are a lot more effective than them and a lot more interesting than them. I mean, if you find those people funny, I feel sorry for you. I don't mean that. I don't mean that. I don't mean that politically. I just mean that as a question of taste and intelligence. I mean, they're really massive jackasses and the silliest people, and they don't even sound like they're men. This is happening. If this were the Rush Limbaugh, Hannity, now Bannon, and other part of the media, right? And this were the establishment, left-wing, communist media. This has happened. This has shrunk. Right? And that's grown like that. Are they equal? Yes. Is the what's called right-wing media right now, is the right-wing media bigger? Maybe, in terms of how people get the news. Is it the more dynamic and more motivational way to? Yes. So they can't count on, and they're smart enough to know they may not be able to endlessly sell this. The Republicans are always responsible for the shutdown, and they may get caught with their pants down, and then you're going to find that they have nothing. So I think the Democrats are going to, I think the president called off that meeting because he's realized that the bargaining position has changed. And he wants them to, he wants to get something out of them. So let's see what happens. I was sure a week ago there'd be a shutdown. There'd have to be to get them together. I'm still leaning there, but maybe not. But he ain't giving in. Not going to happen. So that's coming up next week. Going to be very, very big. The UN goes into the second tier people. The bad part of that is there are more crooks in that group. So the New York City merchants are going to lose a lot of money next week as all the people that come in from the UN steal from them, which was the biggest impact of the UN on my city when I was mayor. During the UN weeks, we just have a lot more stealing going on by people who claim to have immunity. Not all of them do have immunity, by the way. Now, let's see. We want to make sure we got everything. I want to check my little board out here so that we don't leave you with something over the weekend that we should have said. Oh, the Chinese premier came, or prime minister, Xi is the premier, and he said, China and the U.S. is like a marriage. Sometimes we have fights. I don't think I would be married to somebody who killed 100 million people. Do you? No, I would have said no, but these were China suck-ups who do business in China. And boy, do we have China suck-ups in some of the most sensitive parts of the government. The Supreme Court is going to pretty soon decide whether the president can fire people at the Fed. I don't know why the hell he can't. What is the Fed? Only the Constitution can create a fourth branch of government. It belongs to one of the three branches, and it sure as hell isn't to the judiciary or the legislature. Trump is having a great time, had a great time at the Ryder Cup. I suspect he can't go back. I'm praying that he can. It's kind of too late now. I was thinking of calling him and telling him, you better go back. Time to relax a little. You might notice the president's attitude on Putin has changed substantially. If I were Putin, Vladimir, I'm not in the position to give you advice. I don't like you, unlike the president pretends to, I think. Maybe he likes you. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. I don't like you. But I would take him seriously. When he said maybe Ukraine can take a little Russia, I would not have I would underline that in the statement. You're a cautious man. You're a killer. You're a murderer. You're a lot of things. You're a liar, but you're cautious. And he's for real. And I don't want war. And I don't want to see your people die. I think it's horrible, all the Ukrainians that died. I think it's horrible how many of your people died. For what? So now you got a piece of Ukraine. What are you going to do with it? You're going to drive to Crimea? It's got to cost us a couple million people for you to drive to Crimea? Look, the Ukrainians don't want you. You're fighting over who established the religion 1,000 years ago. Come on, you don't really care about a religion, Vladimir. You wouldn't kill these many people. You can't be fighting over who started Christianity in Kiev, Rus. Who do you think I am, Obama? I'm like a silly social worker that you can convince anything of, or Biden, who has no brain. Trump and Erdogan, before I go off, sometimes a picture can say 1,000 words, right?
Right.
I want you to look at that picture. This is the president explaining to Erdogan, stop buying oil from Russia. Do you think that he's getting his message across? Look at that. That guy can't even look at him. I think he's going to stop buying Russian oil just based on that picture. What do you think, Ted? Am I relying on a picture too much? You know the president. You know when he does that. This guy's no dope. He may not be a great guy, but he's no dope.
Yeah, I think sometimes a picture can misrepresent true facial, right? You can catch somebody in a certain...
We don't have the time, but let's go back to what he said on television. What he said on television was, well, I'm going to get him to stop buying. It wasn't like, I'm going to try, whatever. I'm going to get him to do it.
Yeah, it does appear that President Erdogan is thinking. He's deep in contemplation.
He wants a trade deal with the U.S. bad because the economy of Russia is for SHIT. The economy of China is pretty close to that. He likes to keep up good relations with them, but he also likes to make money. He ain't making no money with them in the next 2 years.
Right.
He's making money with us. Now, This guy, I don't think he believes in anything but money.
Yeah.
And Trump knows that. And the best people he can deal with are the people who think about nothing but money. I predict he stops buying oil from Russia. He'll double cross Russia. Why not?
I like it. Write that down, folks.
Okay.
Let's see how long before that prediction comes true.
Picture right there. Right there. I see the expression on that face. Something about it. I'm telling you. And finally, the New Jersey governor's race. My God, if you Democrats in New Jersey elect this one, wow. This woman's name is Cheryl. She went to one of the academies, right? She cheated. They wouldn't let her be with a graduating class. She says because she wouldn't rat out her other cheaters. Well, she didn't rat them out because she was one of them. Why they let her graduate is because she's a woman, and we were under the special rules where you can commit crimes if you're a woman and graduate and become an officer so that you can defile, destroy, and completely kill the spirit of the United States Army. This woman shouldn't have been in the military under any set of circumstances. She cheated. Then recently, Congress held a vote to the usual resolution expressing great sympathy to the Kirk family, to all the people who loved him and cared about him, condemning the killing. 53 American-hating, monstrous Democrats voted against it. In other words, they were against the resolution that was against the killing of Charlie Kirk. Now, how you can be in Congress or how you can be a human being and do that is a little hard to understand. Now, she's up for re-election in a tough, not re-election, she's up for election for governor against Citarelli, who almost won last time. I think he lost by 3%.
Yep.
So she voted for it. Safe vote. First thing she does when she comes back to New Jersey at a little Democratic meeting is tell us what a rat Charlie is, how horrible he was, how unfair he was, what a terrible person he was, to try to make up for the fact that there might be a backlash against her for voting for it. This is what we're dealing with here with this piece of you know what. So now here's the bad news for her. Even before those two things happened, after the debate they had, they went to 43-43, and she's been ahead by 8 points all the way. That's because he's also smarter than her, which is usually the case between a Republican and a Democrat. After all, if you were really smart, you wouldn't be a modern day Democrat. The things they espouse are too stupid.
Right.
So if I have it correct, that poll came out not after her terrible mistakes, but even before that. So she went into it even, and since then it's been revealed she cheated at the military academy, and she voted to sympathize with the Kirk family right before she condemned the Kirk family.
Right.
Now, if you want her as a governor, you got her, okay? But please, I may joke around about New Jersey and stuff like that. Like I like to say, when they had The Sopranos on, and we begin with Tony driving to New Jersey.
Yeah.
I would always watch it with a group of people because they wanted my expert commentary on it.
Right.
And I'd always begin by saying, I sent them there, meaning I chased them out of New York like St. Patrick chased the snakes out of Ireland. And I chased them to New Jersey, where they became a second-rate organized crime group.
That is right.
But I love New Jersey. My friend Bernie Kerrick came from New Jersey. About my favorite cousin now lives in New Jersey.
Well, voting.
I love New Jersey. They're just like New York. We like to kid around. But you elect that. What are you going to do? I mean, you had the worst governor in America, Murphy. Imagine a liar from the Naval Academy. I mean, it's like having the guy in Connecticut who claimed to be in the Vietnam War and he wasn't. Where did they find these people? And why do the Democrats vote for them? Like when he said that they already have in Chicago, Blagojevich said they already have in Chicago a communist. I don't know if he's a complete sub-moron. He's the one who said that Nixon caused poverty. Do you actually think he knows who Nixon is? I don't know if he knows who Nixon is. But yeah, it's 43. Did you show that 43-43, right? So that was Emerson College poll. That's a reputable poll. Generally, as most of them do, goes slightly Dem. When he went into the last election, he was losing by 10. He lost by 2, right? If that's right, he's winning by 10. And these other things have happened after that poll, I think.
So that's in New Jersey. Get out and vote if you're in New Jersey.
Well, yeah. This would be a big win. This would be a big win.
November 4th.
This is a state
Early
I think we can
area.
put into a Pennsylvania process. A Pennsylvania. Let me pick another state. Well, I mean Florida. You go back to Florida 10 years ago, it was a purple state. I think we now may have pretty close to veto-proof majorities. You look at Pennsylvania, same thing. Now we've gotten it, nice big win for the Senate, nice big win for the president. We got the gubernatorial election coming up. We'll see what we can do with that. And Fetterman could be a problem, but maybe a good problem. We have to have some Democrats. If we have to have Democrats, I'll take one like Fetterman any day.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to see the Democratic Party become honest. That's all. And left-wing American. Well, weekend's coming up. Going to be very, very interesting to see everything that happens. All these things are in flux. We'll see what happens. We'll be available to you at any time. If anything happens, to give you the extra information, the information being withheld. Why are they not telling you who did it? Oh, because it was a left winger or a communist or a member of this or that or the other thing. I do that all the time. And we need you to be informed, because the battle that the president has started and has won every victory so far is only as good as the last victory. And it's only as good as how we grow. We grow in confidence and we grow in effectiveness. What happened to us with Charlie could have crushed us. I really do believe it made us stronger. Thank you, Charlie. And thank you, Erica, and that beautiful family. You know, we didn't see much of his parents, and I'm sure that's because they didn't want to be seen, and I understand that. But I just haunts me. I mean, being a father, it just haunts me. It still does. We got to stop that. And there's only one way to stop it. It's called law and order. We're not stopping it by taking communist social workers and sending them in there and tell you, use your words. So go over to a wonderful TV station that we run from 7 to 8. We will be on Monday. You come back to us on Monday on Mike's TV, Lindell TV, also on X, our home base. And we'll be on top of everything. And if we have to see you over the weekend, let's hope it's over something good, okay? So enjoy the weekend. Go to church or synagogue. Pray to God. Last weekend, we got them back big time. Thank you to the Kirk family and to TP USA. And God bless America.
It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply